Hello YouTube! Well, I think it's time. Time for Tube Spike version 2.0. Cue the jingle.
Tube Spike.
Alright, so what happened was Tube Spike is fine, but the selfie stick I use with it is not. Can't extend it fully anymore. It doesn't hold together anymore. So I looked for a similar selfie stick. I didn't look that hard. Didn't find it. So I thought about maybe getting something a little more robust. So what I ended up with was this from Amazon, of course. It's basically a monopod. It's taller, more sturdy, more stable. But the problems are it's obviously not going to fit in the original Tube Spike in no shape or form. If I were to modify the end of it to fit in the Tube Spike, it would still have a problem because it's going to be too top heavy. I would need to, maybe rebuild this with some longer, more robust spikes or something like that. So what I'm going to try to do, and maybe take you along on my journey, is to figure out how to make a bigger, badder, stronger Tube Spike version 2.0, starting with this 1.5 inch zinc coated steel, and the circumference or the diameter of this is about 1.5 inches. This is a little too big, so ideally I want to take this off. I want to fit this. This is rubber squishy grip without the hand grip on there. That should fit in there snugly. If not, it might take a little bit of trimming. Not that big a deal. But the other problem is this is the top. So this is where the camera mount thing goes, like that. And this needs to be at the bottom. So hopefully I can replace this little spike here with the same thread pattern as what holds the camera on. And I did get the screws. They're a little bit different. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to fasten it onto here. We'll have to figure that out as we go. But either way, I'm about to ruin this Amazon Basics monopod to try to make this thing happen. So if all goes well, I'll take you along on the journey, and we'll have a Tube Spike version 2.0. All right, now we're in the Kortman golf shop. It's not really a golf shop. It's just my shop. Yeah, you can see there's furniture everywhere. My wife refinishes furniture and does a bunch of other stuff for our vintage boutique store. Knickknacks Vintage Boutique plug. So she works in this thing more than I do, really. I'm gonna see if I can get this part off of this. All right, so plan A didn't work. This thing does not want to come off. So plan B is to grind this down square so that it can fit into the square tubing that I have. So bust out a grinder. Got one on me that burned. Kind of square. I mean, we just start by grinding, test fitting, grind, test fit. All right, so square-ish, very square, and it fits. Then, like I thought, the handle portion can squeeze down in there, and that's gonna be a nice tight fit. So that's, I mean, that's step 1 or 2 of getting this thing figured out. So that will work. Then I'm hoping I can utilize that bolt there that normally holds your camera, put it through a folded section of this, and put a nut on it. Or I might have to weld a nut to this or something like that. So that's a hurdle done. Another big if was that spike on the end. I've taken the spike off, and I looked up on the internet what is the standard screw size for the camera mount. They all have that same size screw on it, which is what the selfie stick had. And this one has it, but now it's on the wrong end. So what I found was it's a 1/4 inch 20. So Home Depot, 1/4" 20. Now I went ahead and got some with nuts in case I'm able to utilize the one on the top, which is now the bottom. To double check, this is the mount for the GoPro, and voila, it works. So the next thing is, will it screw into here? And voila, it does. So what are you going to do with the screw to screw into that and screw into this? Well, you're going to cut the head off, and then we'll be able to use both ends. So next, I'm not sure how far down this goes. I think it will probably go as far as I want it to go. I just need it reasonably tight. I kind of don't want to screw it down past a point where it would not want to come back up. And you can see on the other side, there's only about a, well, I don't know, small bit. About a 1/4 inch of the threads showing. So I'm going to leave more than a 1/4 inch on there from here. But I'm going to cut this off. Cutting time. It melted the plastic that the screw was going into. So now I'm letting it unmelt. All right, so a bit of a brain fart there. I'm no expert at this. I'm no master mechanic by any means. I don't know if you're able to hear me or if I'm going to be able to put that in the video. As I'm cutting through the bolt with the scissor wheel, the monopod started moving around. And I was thinking, God, it's odd that the screw would be bending and I'm only halfway through it. And I realized that the plastic right here was melting where the screw goes into it. So I just stopped, secured it, let it cool so the plastic has hardened back. Now, it may be better than it was before, because now maybe the melted plastic has bonded better in the threads or something. I don't know, but we'll see. I just need to finish cutting through this bolt. Not a good angle. Now, when you cut a bolt, it ends up nasty. So you need to A, deburr it, and B, bevel it so that you can put whatever you want to put on it. So, back to the grinder. Now let's see if the GoPro mount will fit on it. I think I can use a little more. There it goes. Like butter. We're getting there. We're getting there. So here we have the original tube spike and the selfie stick. I made it, about as deep as the, I made the tube about as deep as the handle for the selfie stick. Then I have the spike. So a couple of things that I wanted to improve upon on Tube Spike 2.0 is to have a tighter fit here. We've achieved that by squaring these off, and then this padded handle is going to stick snugly in the square tubing. The other thing is the spike is 75-85% of the time sufficient to keep it stable where I want it, but there are plenty of times where I wish I had more. I wish I had more stability, which I wish I had a longer spike. I wish I had two spikes, and I wish I had 2 foot pegs. So what I've decided to do here is I'm going to split this at the corners, and 2 of them I'm going to use as the spikes, and 2 of them I'm going to use as the foot pegs. So split them. Maybe I won't even split one of the corners and just use this these 2 sides still connected together as the spike, which will stabilize it in 2 directions. Then cut this side out and this side out and cut them down. I only really need about that. Bend them out like that. And I'm thinking now this one won't have a bottom. I was originally wanting to put a bolt through a hole, like fold it over into it, weld it, put a bolt through a hole through that, but I just don't think that's going to work. I think that it's going to fit snugly enough that I'm not going to need it, and should be good to go. So now what I want to do is I'm going to need minimum this much for the handle, and then I just kind of want to determine how much I want for the spike. I definitely want more than that. So I'll do some guesstimations here, and then we're going to start cutting. Here's what I've come up with. I'm going to cut the whole thing here. So that will be the length of the handle, which is going to go inside this, plus the length of the spike, which is twice as long as the original. I'm going to cut this corner along that line, this corner along that line. I'm going to cut it here and here. I'm going to bend this piece out and this piece out as my foot pegs. Leave this intact and sharpen it as my stake. So bigger, better, badder, stronger, hopefully more stable, and hopefully not much more bulky. So we got some cutting to do. Cutting time. Now if I'd used this on the bolt, it wouldn't have had so many burrs, but not nearly as many sparks, so not as much fun. Pretty short work of that. Pretty clean cut. Now we need to cut them long ways.
Receive a complimentary stay in one of our 5-star hotels. For further details, press 1 now.
Now the bends. All right, so this piece is free and this piece is free. I'm going to bend them back and cut them at the line. Those are going to be my foot pegs. The remaining 2 I'm going to keep together for strength. Sharpen the ends. Hot. A little better. I might mess with that a little later. So these, I'm going to dull the edges, and these I'm going to sharpen the edges. There's some spots at Cedar Lake, par 3 on the back 9/16. You can't get a T into the ground there, so it's going to take something special to get this in the ground. I'm just hoping these are going to be strong enough. I think they will. So, more grinding. First, I'll grab another beer. All right, so beer has been obtained. Cheers. Time to get back to the grind.
That's the piston rod connector that connects it to the friction.
So while I'm doing this, my son is disassembling the lawnmower engine. Well, there's your problem.
It's a piston rod cavity?
I don't know.
Yeah, it just completely blew up.
Yeah, I blew up the lawnmower, so I bought a new one. We wanted to take the old one apart, So we did. I think we're in pretty good shape now. So we've got the foot pegs. I've dulled them. We've got the spikes. I've sharpened them. Now let's see if we can fit the monopod inside the tube spike, and then we'll jam it in the ground. See how that works. I should probably deburr it. There were some spots I just couldn't get to good with the grinder, so angle grinder. Plus the sparks. All right, so I feel pretty good about that. It's pretty much done. I'm just debating whether or not I want to paint it black before I put the monopod in there, or go ahead and jam the monopod in there. And if I want it black, then I can paint it black with the monopod in there. It's going to be kind of a one-piece unit, whereas opposed to the previous tube spike was a spike and a selfie stick. This is going to be a one-piece unit for the most part, because it's going to be pretty stuck in there. I think I'm going to jam the monopod in there, and if I want to paint it black, I'll paint it black. That last little bit got me to the bottom. The grip is even with the top. And unless something goes wrong, this is the finished version of Tube Spike 2.0. Let's see how it works. Afraid of that. The steel is not as strong as the other steel. I go to step on it and it bends. All right, it works, but it ain't perfect. The steel at the bottom bends, and when I was pushing down on the monopod, it came through. So I think it needs a bottom. I might weld some steel on there to make a bottom and to reinforce the foot pegs. But hey, it's a good start. Well, I thought I was going to get away without having to weld, but it seems like this steel is not nearly as strong as this steel, which is what the foot pegs are made out of on the original tube spike. So I think I'm going to weld pieces on here like this and like that, but cut this here so that this part is flush with that, yet goes all the way into the corner. Bevel that edge at a 45 degree and just weld it up. So shouldn't be that big of a deal. Really shouldn't. Just got to make some marks, some cuts, start welding. So the saga continues.
One eternity later.
Hello, YouTube. All right, so we're back on the tube spike. I don't even know if I can call it a tube spike because it's square. Square tube spike? Square spike? We'll be thinking about that, okay? So what I found is that, number one, the foot pegs are not strong enough. Stepping on them will bend them, so I need to reinforce those. Also, when I was pushing down on the monopod, it would go through this. So I need to create a bottom for this and reinforce these. So what we've got here is just angle iron, and this is some strong stuff. This is what the foot peg was made from on the original tube spike. And I was gonna cut like that, 2 pieces, but then it occurred to me that I should just measure it twice as long and then cut a V on this side so that I can bend it and then just weld it all up in there like that, Cut these little pieces out here so that'll sink down inside and stuff like that. So we got some measuring to do, some cutting to do, and let's get to it. So it's not rocket science. I'm not an engineer by any means. I'm just going to mark this a V on this, trying to get a 45-degree angle. And if I don't get it right, ain't no big deal. Grind it down or fill it in when we weld. Theoretically, that should bend 90 degrees. Close. All right, so I'm going to need to cut some more off of this. You can see it's not nearly 90 degrees, but, you know, like I said, I was just kind of eyeballing it. I'm going to need to cut some more out of here and then bend it some more. Of course, when I have these mass produced, I'll have $1 million CNC machine doing this. We're getting there. That's close to 90 degrees. I'll probably just file this down a little bit. Where's my right angle? See, when I was doing this yesterday, Dylan was also taking apart the old lawnmower motor. So my tools are just kind of all over the place. Oh, there it is. I mean, I don't know. I try to put my tools back when I use them, but as you can see, sorry, Jamie, but my wife uses my shop more than I do. And the stuff just doesn't go back the way it should. So you can see I need to bend it a little more. There's a little bit of a gap there, but not enough to make it a 90-degree angle. And it really needs to be a true 90-degree angle. So I'm just going to grind this, I think. Or do I want to cut it? I want to take the scissor wheel to it and cut it. Yep. We're there. Maybe a little more than 90 degrees, but I can bend that back and just fill that in. Boom. Boom. Now I need to cut this off and this off. But it's hot. This piece and this piece will go down inside this piece. This piece and this piece will go along these pieces to reinforce. Like that. Fits kind of like a glove. It's close enough. So we're going to straighten this out, straighten that out, grind this down a little bit. Probably weld that seam right there. And then we'll be cooking with grease. I got to clean up some surfaces to get them ready to weld. It's kind of hot. Let's try the angle grinder. We'll do what we can. All right, so here we are, set up to weld. I'm gonna fill that gap in there. Weld this along here, along here, along here, and along here. And then I'll weld it on the outsides as well. We having fun yet? Luke, I am your father. Gloves are a good idea. I am not a good welder. That might be the best bead I've ever done, though. Got a little hole there. No big deal. That didn't turn out bad either. I mean, normally I'm doing just really, really small welds, so maybe that I'm doing some bigger welds here. Able to put a bead on it. All right. Like my father-in-law says, it's not about the welds, it's about the angle grinder. So I can grind those down to make them look pretty good. Now I got to get the outsides here and here. At this point, it's all overkill because those welds will hold just fine. Oh, I got to get in here too. So let's do that. So if you are a professional welder or want to be a professional welder, you must always remember you've got to have gloves, good gloves. And these are pretty good. Obviously, you've got to have a welding mask, but you'll go blind without it. You know, you can really burn your eyes and damage them for the rest of your life with that. You really should have on a leather apron, nice work boots. And if you're not a professional welder, next thing is ice cold Miller Lite. Obviously, I'm not a professional welder. So, ugly as hell, but strong. So, next thing is angle grinder. Let's make some sparks, okay? Battery, dead. Always be sure that your beer is not in the way of your debris. Mine's not. It's looking a lot better. I don't think I can get in the corners. I'm not sure how I can get in the corners. Maybe there's some sort of Dremel tool. I don't know. I'll think about it. I don't think this is the right tool, but let's see what happens. Maybe that looks like it might be it. I think I broke it. So that tool got me in the corners pretty good. It's a lot better. I'm gonna see if I can smooth out the surface around the corners with this. Nah, not the right tool. That might be as good as the grinding gets for the welds. I can knock this off, knock that off with a bench grinder. See what else I can do with the bench grinder. But I think that is strong as hell. And I don't think that is gonna bend when I try to stick it into the ground. So let's see what else we can do. So this is a pretty small shop. I have the vise permanently attached to this little workbench here that I can't remember where we came up with this thing. I didn't make it. Maybe in a previous house, a rental or something like that, but somehow we ended up with it, and it works pretty good. It's pretty sturdy, and you know, just put your foot on one of these things when you need to secure it. So that's the only thing permanently mounted to it. We could take it off if we needed to. When I want to put the bench grinder on it, just use a clamp, and most of my easy clamps are at the rental house, so I'm using something that are not so easy, but they work. If I want to put on a different tool, the drill press or the saw or something else, just clamp it on there, and it works pretty well. And I can move this where I need to move it. I got this workbench here, which, as you can see, is pretty crowded. I can clamp it to that if I needed to. So let's see what we can do grinding that on the grinder. That's about all it takes to get the steel part like that. That's what it looked like over here, even with that. Just to be, you know, a little better looking. Voila. Clean it up on the fine stone. Pretty sharp. So this might be the finished product here before I paint it. It's going to need to be painted. The tabs that I step on have been reinforced. That steel is really strong. It's not going to bend. Sharpened up the end there. Cleaned it up as good as I can. Again, I'm not a professional welder. I'm just a crappy YouTube golfer. So let's see if we can make it work. So we occasionally paint things around here. So I figured I'd be able to find something like this to hang it from so that I don't have to get paint all over myself. And this, I think my son brought that back from one of his trips by the creek. Not sure if I can get it out. I was able to get the thing out. When you're hanging something like this, you got to figure out what is the point that you can best afford to not paint. That's on the inside of the part that's going to be in the ground. So if that's not covered perfectly, that's fine. Had some paint hanging around. Doesn't really matter if it's good or bad, whatever. And there's no wind, so it's a good time to paint. It's looking pretty good. It's hard to see in this light. That should do it. I can bring it inside to dry it out now. All right, here we go. It ain't perfect. Couple of runs here and there. If I had better light, I might have done a better job. But I don't know, it's looking pretty good. I wish I could have got in there, ground down those corners a little better, but it is what it is. So I think that is what it is for now. We'll let it dry, and tomorrow we'll stick the monopod in it. See how well it works. We'll stick it in the ground. All right? Thanks. All right, so here it is. Tube Spike version 2.0.
Tube Spike.
It's not actually a tube. I mean, it's a rectangle tube. Square tube? Square tube. So am I going to call it Square Tube Strike? I don't think so. I'll just call it Tube Spike 2.0. It's a real tight fit in there, but I wanted a tighter fit to keep the back and forth movement out of it. This one, when I plant it in the ground, it's going to be there. So it's going to be like a one-piece unit attached to this monopod. I've already got the GoPro on there, Let's see how it works. This one gives me a little more elevation too, so you know, I'm about 6'1" and change. It's a little above me. Got the camera on there just kind of loosely, which will allow me to turn it because I don't have a swivel on this. I reinforced the pegs, so it should go in pretty good. So they're pretty good. So there we have it. Tube Spike 2.0. I'll probably put it to use tomorrow just to try it out and get used to it. And then use it for the MGA tournament Saturday. And we got a collab coming up between me and Dougie and Mark at the Frog on Sunday. So a lot of golf coming up. This thing seems pretty sturdy. I think it's gonna work out just fine. Just a little more bulky to carry around than the previous Tube Spike and the selfie stick. So thanks.